It says a recording started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell with Spiritual Warriors Wisdom, and I'm talking about spiritual warriors as in not the Hollywood version of a warrior, but a more spiritual, grounded, down to earth version of a warrior that is taking on the largest foe that they can ever take on, their ego. And from a place of love and compassion, they're working diligently on themselves. And I'm really excited to have my special guest with me, my friend and mentor, Reverend Pat Campbell. Oh God, let's do this back again. No, I'm just going to stop because I was just thinking of her because,
I know
shit.
it's hard not to
Yeah.
get confused.
Okay. I see I can re-record this. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell, and I'm with Spiritual Warriors Wisdom. And I'm talking about a spiritual warrior, and specifically a warrior from a place of not the Hollywood version for a warrior of the egomaniac that's terrible, but the spiritual warrior, the warrior that is taking on his biggest foe, their ego, and dealing with it from a place of love and compassion, with dedication, with determination. And I am really excited to have my friend and mentor, Reverend Pat Ball, with me today. Welcome, Pat.
Welcome, Neil.
So I want to know, as a little girl, were you drawn every night as you said your little prayers? Please, God, I want to be a minister when I grow up. Or were you destined in your mind to do something else?
Well, that is a good question. You know, Neil, when I was a little girl, I grew up in the United Church, but my parents were not religious at all. I grew up in a small town, French Canadian town in Quebec, 99.9% French. But I was brought English. My parents were English, and a lot of the managerial class in it was in Shawinigan at that time. They were all English, and the workers were French. This was before the Quiet Revolution in Quebec, and so we had one school that was called Shawinigan High School, but it wasn't just a high school. It was from kindergarten to grade 11. And I knew all the people in it, grew up with them. There were two English Protestant churches, the United Church and the Anglican Church. And my parents chose to go to the United Church because it was the blandest. It was the least religious that they could find. But what I liked about going to church was the music. And I used to go at night as well. There was a children's choir that I belonged to. I don't remember anything about the sermons. I remember my parents thinking that the minister was extremely boring. They couldn't stand going to church. In the summertime, we never went. We moved out to the cottage and lived at the cottage. But in the wintertime, and when I got old enough to be able to go by myself, I went by myself. I remember trying to read the Bible one time. And as soon as I started reading, like from the book of Genesis, and how it says that God created man and woman, on I think it was the seventh day. I don't know. No, that was the day he rested. Sixth day. It must have been the sixth day. And then the next chapter says, before man was created. And I'm thinking, but you just created him on the first chapter. Like, this is garbage. And the stories of trying to read the book of Noah, about Noah, 3 different versions of the story. One version, like Noah was in the boat for seven days and 7 nights. Another one, he's on for 40 days. Another one, it was just so confusing. I thought, this is garbage. And I threw the Bible away. And I never looked at it again until I came to Unity. So I was not brought up religious. My mother was very scientific. She believed that if you couldn't see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, it didn't really exist.
Yes.
But as I said in my talk last Sunday, I don't know if you saw it, how curious she was. curious about how other people lived. And she was always seeking answers. So, no, I grew up not knowing what I was going to be. Actually, I wanted to be a nurse. That's what I wanted to do. But I graduated from high school when I was 17, and you couldn't go into nursing until you were 18 in Quebec, in Montreal. So for 1 year, I thought, well, I'll go to university. So I went to McGill for a year, and during that year, I was doing candy striping. I don't know if have you ever heard of candy stripers?
I'm old enough to know what a candy striper
Candy
is.
stripers, yeah. I don't know if they still have them. That's interesting. Maybe. I don't know. But and my job was to take water around in the evening. And when I saw the way nurses were treated and how cynical they were, I thought, I don't want to be a nurse. What do I want to do? Well, my world kind of fell apart. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I dropped out of university. I went back for the next year, halfway through, and took a secretarial course and became a secretary at Reader's Digest in Montreal. So that lasted for a while. But then
Uh-oh, so that's why we disliked you. No, in the beginning, because you sent us all of that mail personally.
I wasn't in that department. Actually, I had the greatest job. I was the reprint editor. And my job was when people would write in, this was in the old days, when people would write in and they'd say, do you remember the story about the little boy who was lost down the well and the dog found? And so I had to figure out where that story was and send it to them.
Yep.
So part of my job was reading back issues of Reader's Digest and cataloging the stories. So I spent a lot of time just reading Reader's Digest. It was not that stressful a job.
Yeah.
Mind
That
you, at
was
that
before
time,
the endless contests.
no, they were on already down in another department downstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they were on always.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was getting $50 a month, or maybe it was
Ooh.
no, it might have been $50 a week at that time. Yeah, big pay. We're talking in the 59, 60, 1960. I'm old, So I've had a lot of life experiences. Well, then I fell in love and decided to get married. So I got married at 19, started having children when I was 21. And so for 15 years, I was a stay-at-home mom, looking after my kids, looking after the house, looking after my husband, being like the Betty Crocker mummy. And one thing that I did like to do, my father was his hobby was building cottages and stuff, and so I learned how to do roofing and plumbing and electrical and you name it. I learned how to do that.
It's interesting that you had this back in the early 60s and the late 50s. You hit all three careers that a woman back then typically had. They either were a secretary, a nurse, or a mother. Those were the three accepted things. How we have changed so much.
Changed. We have changed. Yeah, I didn't even know there were women. There were no women ministers. There was
No.
no. How would I know that would be even a possibility? No, no, no. Especially in Quebec, there were limited openings for yeah.
So what was it that somewhere along your travel you were attending or doing something and you went, I want to be a minister? There was a moment in your life that you went from participating to going, I want to lead and I can do this.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened was because I was feeling so unsatisfied with my life, I started eating. Food had always been a problem for me. I was a compulsive overeater. I did not know it. Um, and then my husband got arthritis, and they told him that if I didn't start working, that I had to become the breadwinner. So what was open for me, we were now living in Sault Ste. Marie, and I could, without leaving and having to go somewhere else, I could go into nursing. So I decided that's what I would do. Nursing had changed. Nurses were now unionized. They were getting a good pay. So I became a nurse. And about um, 5 years after I became a nurse, I discovered Overeaters Anonymous, which is patterned after Alcoholics Anonymous, which is all about discovering your higher power within you, turning it over. I don't know if you're familiar with the 12-step program, but it became huge in my life. And I eventually moved to London. I got divorced. That's another story.
We're talking London, Ontario, as opposed to
Yeah.
London.
London, Ontario. Yes. Moved to London, Ontario, and my fellows started a group called Patterned, using James Redfield's book, Celestine Prophecy.
Yes.
And I remember one time they said, "Oh, Pat, here's a book you might like," and it was a Catherine Ponder book. I don't know if you're familiar with Catherine Ponder. She is the abundance queen. She's a unity minister. And she wrote these books that have all these affirmations in. At first, I thought, it's a pile of garbage. You think that saying these like magic words, you're going to suddenly change your life? Like, I don't think so. I was so skeptical. Anyway, but I thought, well, what is this unity thing? I wanted to learn more about prayer and meditation. Didn't know that's step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. And I wanted to know how to do that because I didn't have a clue. So I found someone who was talking about the unity, and I decided to explore it. So I went to the library. There was a copy of the book, Discover the Power Within You by Eric Butterworth. It's the same book that changed Oprah's life, that her grandmother shared with her, and Maya Angelou. And I started reading it, and it blew my mind. I did not know that you could look at the Bible a different way. Totally, not literally, but metaphysically. I did not know that, as Unity's third principle says, that I was responsible for living my life, that the world I was living in, that I created it with my thoughts and actions and words. That was the worst news to me ever.
Yes.
I thought, no, don't tell me I've done this. Oh, come on.
And it's fun because at sometimes it's entirely empowering to know that you've created your life, and yet at times, depending on where we are, it's totally disempowering and, quite frankly, depressive. That
It was. I was like, oh no, take me back out of this. I don't want to know this. Don't show me anymore. But it's kind of like the mafia. You might try to leave it, but they'll never leave you.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so by this time, I had gone to my first Unity. So they didn't have, in London, they didn't have a church. They had a study group that was led by this woman, a licensed teacher that would come from Hamilton every second Sunday and do a talk, and the rest of us were studying the Quest. And I went to see the Quest because I was working on the weekends that she was there. So I couldn't go to the services.
Yep.
And they had been a church. They had a box full of tapes that I found in the cupboard. And I said, oh, could I borrow one or two of these? They said, take them all, and when you're done, bring them back. So I started listening to these tapes about how to look, how all these unity principles. I got so sick. I thought I was having the case of the flu. I won't describe my symptoms.
Yeah.
I got so sick I couldn't go to work. So you guess what I did? I stayed home from work, listened to more tapes. It was just,
it's interesting in today's world because the concepts that you were introduced to in the 80s didn't exist. They were so foreign, and yet today they're so commonplace. Like this was before all of Oprah's, all of Wayne Dyer's, all of these big big name spiritual gurus that
Yeah,
we think and know. This was cutting edge. This was tapes.
no. Now, for those
And
of you that don't know what tapes are,
yeah, and
it's so funny. And yet, Unity was founded in 1897. It's been around forever.
you know,
I just didn't know about it. It's not well publicized. So finally, I was able to go to a service because there were 5 Sundays in the month, and so my shifts changed, and I was able to go the Sunday. Well, I walked in, and Jean Craig, who was the licensed teacher from Hamilton, said, "We've been waiting for you." And I thought, "You've been waiting for me?"
yeah,
Well, so she started talking about becoming a licensed teacher and learning all this stuff because I was just devouring it, just
yes,
reading everything I could. So I decided there was nobody there to teach me any courses. There was no online. Of course, the internet had not yet been invented. So this was actually, it was now in 96. So it had just 94, 95 was when the internet started. But it wasn't really big, and certainly there was no organized classes. So I started going down to Unity Village to take classes to become a licensed teacher. And when I came back, after the first session of 2 weeks, they said, "Okay, you're going to start teaching us now." I said, "What? You're the only one that's taken any courses, and so you're going to start teaching." I said, "Well, I guess I could teach what I just learned." So I started doing that. And then it got that they said, well, at first I was only taking them for my own self. But then I thought, well, I can become a licensed teacher. I can do this and do nursing, and, that's fine. So then people said, well, when are you going to become a minister? And I thought, minister? So
yeah,
it wasn't so much that I was dying to become a minister. It was like, really? You want me to become a minister? You think I should be a minister? And I thought, how could I earn a living as a minister? But so what happened was so by this time I was so used to turning my life and will over to God because I'd been doing that for about 20 years, being in the 12-step program. I said, well, God, if you want me to become a minister, I'll do my part. I'll fill out the application, but you better figure out how, because I don't know how. Well, now I was 55, and the Ontario Hospital Association, or the government, was trying to get rid of nurses. They gave us early retirement at 55. So I was getting a pension, getting bridge. I said, well, that's not going to be enough, God. What am I supposed to do? So when I was down in Missouri at Unity Village, I said, well, I'll go over to the hospital and see if maybe I could work there. Well, didn't they hire me? I was an intensive care nurse trained in Canada. They loved that. So God looked after, it was just all, I thought, okay, God, you've done your part. I guess I better do mine. Okay, fine. I'll become a minister. It was like, it
it's
reminded me
interesting.
so
You,
many times in my life of Moses. I just love looking at the old stories in the Bible now and seeing how it interprets for my life. So I don't know if you know about Moses in the burning bush. Have you heard that story? So
I
Moses,
have, but that's okay. Keep going.
Moses was out looking after the sheep, or I think it must have been sheep, for his father-in-law Jethro, and he came across a burning bush. This was after he'd been wandering around the desert for 40 years by himself, looking after the sheep. And the burning bush was there, and suddenly he hears the voice saying, Moses, you're standing on ground. And God, and he says, Moses says, well, what? Who's talking to me? And the bush, God says,
Yeah.
well, it's me, God. I'm talking to you, and take off your shoes. You're standing on hallowed ground. And Moses says, well, what do you want, God? And God says, well, I want you to go back to Egypt and lead the children of Israel to their promised land. And Moses says, me? You want me to do that? Are you nuts? What do you think? I can't do that. Go ask my brother Aaron. My brother Aaron's really good. He's a good orator. He's a good guy. He knows he can do that. And God said, no, it's you, Moses. Moses, how am I supposed to do that? And God says, don't worry about it, Moses. I'll be with you. I'll guide you. I'll put my words in your mouth. And all you have to do is speak them. And so Moses says, well, okay, I'll try. So that was about me. Okay, fine. If you promise you're going to be doing that, I'll try. We'll see. So, so I went to ministerial school. I became a minister. Now I have to get a job. Well, in Canada at the time, there was a law that said that if there were openings in Canada, the Canadians had to get them. And there were 2 openings, one in London, one in Mississauga. And I got hired by Mississauga, so I became the minister there. And I learned so much. I learned how to do PowerPoint. I learned how to write a sermon, a talk every week. And I would say at the beginning, I do series of talks because I'd say, okay, God, what do you want me to talk about? And I'd look at the books behind me and I'd say, okay, oh, that one. Okay. So then I do a series of talks. So I always said it wasn't so much that I was writing my talk as I was writing it down. I was listening to what God was saying and writing it down. And a lot of the time I get up on Sunday and I say, I'm so glad you're here to hear me, to listen to me talk to myself. Because what I say on Sundays, I have to hear. Like, get over yourself, Pat, grow up, stop taking things personally, all these things that really, I need to hear over and over just as much as I think everybody else does too.
I suspect that you learned as well. Anyone that speaks, if you really want to learn something, try teaching it. Because the questions that your pupils, your students, the people that you're orating to can come up with so many questions that I know personally I have gone, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you and they take me deeper. And I may think that I know everything there is to know about a subject, but as soon as I teach it and the questions appear, it takes me personally deeper. So I love to teach and share.
Totally. I get a lot of joy out of watching people have their aha moments and talking about them. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
There's, I don't remember the joke, but when you were talking about Moses and Moses wanting to wander the desert for 40 years, and it had something to do with definitely Moses was single, because if he would have been wandering and been married, his wife would have told him where to go a long time ago.
Actually, Moses was married. Oh, yeah. Jethro. So what happened? So Moses' story is supposedly in 40-year segments. First, he was discovered. He was brought up in Egypt, in the Pharaoh's palace. His mother saved him, Moses, in the bulrush. So he was there for 40 years. And then what happened is he saw an Egyptian kill an Israeli, and one of the Israelites, and he went and killed the Egyptian. And so an Egyptian said, I saw you kill him. You're going to get killed. And so he ran to the desert, and he met his wife. He met his father-in-law. And so he wandered around the desert, the Sahara. This is the Sinai desert for 40 years. So then at the end of that 40 years was when God said, okay, now you got to go back and lead the children of Israel to the promised land. So when they started, they wandered around the desert for 40 years, but Moses knew it like the back of his hand.
Yep.
So it wasn't that he discovered, he knew where he was going and all this kind of stuff. So before they got into Israel. Yeah.
Yes.
So
spiritually.
Yeah.
From when you started to where you are now, and then that's not the end. But what's the biggest change that you personally have witnessed or you have gone through from when it started with the tapes and the devouring to where you are now? What do you see as the biggest difference in?
Well, really, the my spiritual journey started when I really found OA and accepted the concept of God, which it took me a long time because I was not happy about God, not interested in God, didn't care about God. Really, don't be talking to me about God. However, it gradually grew on me until I got this concept of a higher power that was within me. And that really is what changed my life. Because at that point, I knew, first of all, I was never going to be alone, that I might be by myself, but there was always something with me. I've traveled back and forth across the continent several times in my road trek, which is a van conversion. And people say to me, well, are you driving by yourself? Are you driving? Oh, no. No, I wouldn't go by myself. I said, God's going with me. Oh, thanks. Well, plus my dog, which is God backwards. Same thing. You know,
Yes.
so I always feel that I'm never alone, that God is always with me. And because of that, I no longer have to live in fear. I was such a scared person. I was afraid of, I never thought I could make it on my own. I always thought I needed somebody there who was my higher power. Somebody, so first it was my family, then it was my husband, then it was food, then it was, it was everything but God. So
Yes.
when God finally came into my life and I accepted that there was something bigger than myself that was actually within me, that was huge, huge. Yeah. It gave me confidence. It gave me courage. It gave me mm, self-assuredness. You know, I on yeah, on Sundays, I think because I had so much experience speaking in Overeaters Anonymous, I started doing workshops and weekends and all kinds of stuff. And you start off by saying, my name is Pat, I'm a compulsive overeater, and you're shaking as you say that in public. It's your first public speaking. And it went on from there. And God, I'm not nervous to speak in public. I love it. People can, I just say, well, it's just us. It's just us talking here. It's nothing
Yeah.
very big. Like there's no reason to. Yeah, I don't feel nervous.
One of my mentors' philosophy is when given the opportunity to teach, teach. And if you don't, then get out of the way for those that don't, that those that are there step up behind you. So if you're not going, if given the opportunity, teach. If not, get out of the way.
Yeah, and I think more for me, I want to make sure that I walk my talk. It's not just about teaching and preaching. I want to make sure that I'm living it. For example, I would never tell anybody to go bungee jumping. Not going to do it. If you want to do it, go ahead. But
Yes.
something I'm never going to say, oh, you should really go bungee jumping. No, no.
So for those viewers that don't know, I do attend Unity of Calgary, and Pat alluded to that she has this dog, and Chloe is the sweetest little cuddle bunny ever. And as because of the COVID-19 and we're not meeting, I have missed spending quality time with Chloe because she's just she's
Chloe,
just like, oh, pick me up.
she's right here beside me. Do you want to see her?
Yep.
Oh, 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 there she is.
Yeah,
There she is. And she's just such a little cuddle bunny. Mhm. She just loves to be held.
absolutely. And Chloe wanders the service and she just knows who needs who needs some TLC because she'll just go and stand and be beside the person and they with no agenda, she'll just stand there patiently waiting And yes, she likes it when the cookie crumbs drop, but she's waiting for the pets because she knows that it's therapeutic.
She loves that. You know, it's so interesting because when I graduated from ministerial school, I was I was thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to not, keep my ministerial work to like 80 hours a week? Because that's about the normal working week for a minister. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. But what had happened is I had gone to Mississauga for my interview, stayed at my daughter's who lived in London, forgot my glasses on the bedside table, but I couldn't go back to get them because I would have missed my plane back to Missouri. When I got to Missouri, when I got to Kansas City, I thought, well, I've got to go get some glasses. So I went to the mall and these 1 hour glasses places. And while I was wandering around, I couldn't read because I couldn't see. There was a pet shop, and had a miniature poodle there.
Uh-oh.
And I thought, so I thought, well, I could play with it for a while and then put it back. Well, I picked it up. He put his paws around my neck and cuddled in like, you've come to rescue me. Thank you, Mommy. Oh, you've come to get me. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I went, got my glasses, went home, called my daughter. I said, oh my gosh, should I get this dog? Mom, that would be the best thing that you ever could do. It was really, she had a dog. She said, that would be perfect for you. And I called my other son and I said, so what do you think? Should I get a dog? He had a dog. Oh yeah, Mom. Then I called my other son. Are you nuts? Should you get it? So I didn't listen to him. I went back.
He wasn't the favorite child in that exact moment.
Well, 2 out of 3, I figured.
Yeah.
So he was a dog that did exactly the same thing, and he would work the room. I
Yes.
had classes, and he would walk around on people's laps around the table and sit on the person that needed the cuddling. I think, but he died in 2012. I got Chloe in I've had her for 5 years, in 2015. I think he's Casey reincarnated, because to have 2 dogs that do exactly the same thing without any. Chloe was 8 years old when I got her. So she was born before Casey died, but somehow his spirit was put into Chloe. I totally believe in that. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you talked about Overeaters Anonymous and any of the 12-step programs. Most people don't realize how deep and how fundamental spirituality is in these 12-step programs.
Well, that's the whole point of the program, is to have a spiritual awakening and to know that there is something greater than you. They like to say, but it's really interesting because one of their things that they say is there's 2 things you need to know. 1, there is a God, and 2, it isn't you. Well, of course, the thing is that that's not quite true for us in Unity, because we do know that, so what I believe is that all that I am is God, but not all of God is in me. So God is everywhere present. And so if God's everywhere present, God is in me. All that I am is God. There's a singer, Daniel Naiman, that I love, and he has a song that's all that I am is God. Yep. And I believe my version, or my feeling about God, what I believe about God is that it's vibration, because I'm like my mother, very doubting, I have to prove it. And now that quantum physics has proved that everything is a vibration, to me, that's God. All I am is a vibration, and God is a vibration. And I believe that God is the highest vibration possible, which is love.
Absolutely.
And we're either living in love or fear. And I want to be in love.
about, so people talk about quantum physics now and vibration and love and energy, but back it up 15 years ago, that was not common thing. And quantum physics, where the energy that affects an object here can affect an object on the other side of the planet or the other side. Those concepts were crazy, and sign of the cross, the devil, all of this. It was just crazy. And I remember sitting with one of my teachers and mentors, and my eyes like this as he was trying to explain to me quantum physics and the entanglement theory. And I'm just like,
Well, when I was the minister in Mississauga from 2000 to 2007, and I remember that's when the Celestine Prophecy movie, I
yes,
think, came out then. But I remember I started hearing about quantum physics. So I called up University of Western Ontario. The university asked to speak to the head of the physics department and said to him, could you please explain quantum physics to me? So, because I wanted to explain it to my congregation. And so it was so fascinating, the whole concept of the fact that you can be there, the non-local presence, and that something going on in one area can affect the other, and that, I mean, there were so many examples that we could use. That was about the time when the movie What the Bleep came out,
yes,
that we just showed again. Oh my goodness, when we saw that again at Unity of Calgary a few months ago, I could not believe how much I had learned since that first came out and how much more sense it made to me. It was just so interesting. I remember one of the examples I used was about a plant, an experiment that somebody at a university had done with plants, and the fact that they're energy and that they have consciousness, and so they had hooked it up to some kind of a voltmeter to see about how the energy, what energy the plant would give off under certain circumstances. So he would talk love words to it, and the little arrow
yes,
would go up, and then he would put it in, play music and all of this stuff. He thought, okay, I've got to do something that's kind of not nice to the plant. So he said, I think I'll burn a part of the leaf or something. So he was thinking about this. He went into the other room to get a match. He came back, and the plant meter was going crazy. It was going like, it was just crazy. And he realized the plant had picked up on his thoughts. His thoughts. Now,
yes,
how amazing is that? He had never spoken it out loud. He hadn't touched the plant. He was thinking. What was he thinking? His thoughts affected the plant. It was so amazing. Yeah, that was so, yeah. And I've had some other interesting journeys too, like how I left Unity of Mississauga was because I was the secretary for Unity Canada, the association, Unity Canada, which is the association that helps that are all different, the different Unity groups across Canada. And I would get emails at this point. Now there was email. I would get emails and phone calls and stuff about, well, where's the closest Unity to me? And I'd have to say, like, this was like places like Sudbury and Moncton and places. I say, well, 500 miles away. Good luck on that.
yep,
There was no live streaming. There was nothing at that point. And I started collecting the names of people who wanted to start groups. And I thought, okay, God, you've got to send somebody to help these people.
uh-oh,
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. And I started accumulating people down in Nova Scotia, all over Canada. And I said, well, God, what are you going to do? These people need help. And then guy kept hearing, guess what, Pat? It's you. What do you mean it's me? I can't, I'm a full-time minister. I don't have time to help it. Well, then I turned 65. And guess what happened at 65? I got my pension. I got CPP. I still had the hospital stuff coming in. I had some other income. And I said, okay, now what am I supposed to do? What am I going to do? I said, these people, I'm not going to go. How am I going to get there? What am I going to do with Casey? I have to do something with my dog. So I thought, okay, so suppose I retire from ministry. Then what am I going to do? I have to live some. Oh, I could get one of those big motorhome things and live in that. Could tow my car. I said, oh, I don't want to do that. Then suddenly I was driving behind a road trek, which is a van conversion, 19-foot. Oh my gosh, that would be perfect. So I sold my house. I bought a road trek and started going back and forth in Ontario, going to different places and meeting with people. Because now I could leave Casey in the van. I had a furnace. I had central air conditioning. I had
Yes.
a stove. I had a kitchen. I had a bedroom. I had a bathroom. I had everything I needed. And I lived in that for about 3 or 4 months until I settled just north of Barrie or south of Barrie. But and so then what else happened? I mean, God has just been at work training. God gets me so ready for things that I have no idea about. I
Yep.
decided, well, if I'm going to start these ministries, these study groups, I want them to start off right. I don't want them to get into problems with personalities and all kinds of stuff that they need someone to guide them. And if I'm going to be that person, I need to get trained to do that. So I started taking all these courses on how to run ministries, how to coach people, because I knew that what was going to happen is they'd start and then why did I think this was a good idea? Like, this is way too much work. Forget this. And how to coach them past that monkey mind of telling,
Yep.
have some support. So I got all these qualifications, and then Unity Canada needed a regional consultant. And guess what? All those qualifications were what I needed to qualify to be the regional consultant. So I ended up being the regional consultant for Canada too. So that's what I do. I'm based in Calgary, but I go all over Canada, now mostly by internet. Love Zoom. I mean, so many meetings. One of the most fun things I do, every month we have a cross-Canada check-in call with all the people. It started out, it was just going to be for the people, the ministries that didn't have a minister or a licensed teacher, just to help those. Well, then others found out about them and they wanted to be on. It's grown and grown and grown. Now I have 43 people a month on that call
Very good.
that are signed up for the call. They don't all come on the call, but they get the recording. So
So
it's,
if you notice, Pat has hinted that she's more than 65. And what's amazing is sometimes stereotypical people over 65 lose their sense of adventure for technology.
oh
And
no,
what I know of Pat, as she's aged beyond 65, her interest in technology and her desire to use technology and embrace it has gone up exponentially because I think it makes it easy for her to reach more people.
well, yes, so something I just did recently, one of the groups that I'm mentoring is White Rock, and they're the person that was doing their MailChimp, which is their weekly email blast, had she couldn't do it anymore, and I thought, well, I want to learn how to do that, so I'll do it. So I'm doing it. I talked to people that did it, found out how to do it, played around, and just today, before this call, we were talking about how to live stream the Sunday service, which they do on Zoom, how to live stream it to Facebook or YouTube. So now I'm going to practice doing that. and see how that works. So yeah, I just love doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I would love to continue talking because we've had a great conversation, but I'm the one that actually needs to duck out because I'm supposed to be on another calls pretty quick here. So I want to thank you for spending time with us, Pat. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. This has been fun.
Yeah.
And the main thing to emphasize is, when God says you're going to do something, you better just get ready because it's going to happen.
One way or the other.
One way or another.
Okay.
You can be dragged, let go, or be dragged kicking and screaming.
So you might as well go willingly.
We'll just let go and say, okay, God, you're in charge. Go ahead. Let's see where
Yeah.
we're going.
Yeah. So what's that saying? Let go and let go, or let go and let God.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thanks for asking me, Neil.
You're welcome.